What's going on, YouTube? Southern Comic Geek coming to you with another talking about something video. I guess I need to work on my introduction with that. But I do appreciate everybody for coming out tonight or watching this on the rewind. In either case, as long as you watch it, that is good. And if you had hit the bell notification, you wouldn't miss when videos like this drop ever so randomly. You will be able to see it. So before we get started with tonight, just so I don't forget, because I do this pretty organically and I'm not as young as I used to be, and so I forget stuff. So why don't we start off with a couple of things, a couple of announcements. I do want to thank everybody for subscribing to the channel as of today. As long as the YouTube algorithm gods do not take away from me those subscribers, we are at 702. So as promised, I will be giving away this particular book, which is the first appearance of Boba Fett, on a live show tomorrow. So be sure again to hit that bell notification so you don't miss that, because you will have to be present to win that book. Now, something that you don't have to be present to win, but it does take a little bit of work on your part, and that is this X-Men 4. So we're talking about X-Men tonight, and so how fortunate that the prize for our 750 subscriber giveaway is an X-Men 4. This is the first appearance of Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Mastermind, Toad, and the second appearance of Magneto, first appearance of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And so if you're an X-Men fan or a fan of comics in general, you're going to want to get a hold of this comic just to say you have got it, because this book, let me tell you, has gotten to be crazy, especially with WandaVision coming out. So check out my video, that's the 600 subscriber giveaway, 750 subscriber announcement video, and find out how you can enter 3 different ways to get up to 16 chances to win that book right there. And once we hit 750, we will be tallying all the chances and the entries into the old randomizer, and we will spin the wheel and see if you win. Now, if you don't enter to win, you can't win, right? So there is that. I also do want to make a plug for Comic Clear supplies. So if you've been seeing some of the videos with the Comic Clear backing boards so that you can display the art that's on the back of your comic sometimes, you can go to comicclearsupplies.com, enter the code SCG10, and save up to 10% on your order. And also, I do want to make a plug for GoCollect.com for all of collecting needs as far as what your comic books are worth, and see if you are paying a fair market price or not. We've already got some people in the chat here. What is going on, Legion? How are you? He is fastly approaching the 300 mark. So if you haven't subbed to Legion of Comics, go check him out. Real Fair Dinkum Review. Good day. How are you doing from the land down under? At least that's my Australian, as it were. But you can go sub him up too. But if he tells you to go see anything on Google, don't listen to him. And we've got certainly no stranger to the channel, Discovery Bay Comics. JB, what is going on? Thank you very much. And so without further ado, we're going to bring in tonight's guest as we talk some X-Men. We've got Justin from No Good Comics. What is going on, man?
Oh, what's up, Jason? I like that Elvis impression you had there. That's pretty good.
He was born in Mississippi. You know, my grandmother was a big Elvis fan. Went to see him in concert just 20 miles down the road from here. Memphis is only 4 miles, so you got to. Oh, thank you very much.
I love it. I love it.
But yeah, man, I appreciate you agreeing to come on the show and talk up some X-Men. So, how's your day been?
Oh man, dude, the day's been good. It's even better now because I just wrapped up my last day of work for the rest of the year, going on a little bit of a vacation time. Not really going anywhere, but you know, staying home, hanging out, being able to get some content done and check out some more content of everybody else's, such as yourself. The day's been pretty good otherwise, and I'm excited for tonight, man. You know me, I like talking X-Men, so.
Yeah. And so if you're not familiar with Justin's channel, check out the video description. You'll see a link to his Instagram as well as his YouTube page. Go sub him up and check him out. I know that him and John's Comics with Kids will talk the X-Men Omnibus talk. And it's funny because I posted a picture of the first Vindicator, and John made a comment on my Instagram that was the subject of y'all next week's next week's deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, so check him out as they talk about X-Men. I think y'all rotate it on either channel. Is that
Yeah,
right?
we're going. Yeah, every other channel. I'm the odds. He's the evens as of right now.
Okay. Well, good deal. So for those who might not be familiar with you, why don't you just give us a little, Cliff Notes version of you and how you got into comics in general.
Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, my dad is an artist for DC, or he was an artist for DC and Marvel. He still does things on his own, and that is kind of what didn't get me into comics. Actually, is it's actually the reason I pushed comics away for a very long time, because I kind of saw it as like the family business. As weird as that is. So growing up, I was into everything like Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic the Gathering and other card games and fun stuff like that. And comics, it took me a long time to come around to them. I like the movies, I like the films, the cartoons in the 90s, X-Men, things like that. But reading actual comics didn't come around until 2.5 years ago. to be straightforward, I wasn't really into reading comics or anything until then. I dabbled a little bit. I think I read Hush like 5 or 6 years ago, things like that, from Batman. But other than that, nothing really. So since then, I've just been, a friend of mine just introduced me to, not even introduced me, he just invited me to go to a comic shop one day during lunch. We were working together at the time. And we went there. He ended up buying some books. He kind of egged me on to buy some. He's like, come on, you gotta buy something, support the shop, and so on and so forth. And so I picked up 2 books. It was like, what was it now? Jerry Duggan's, one of his books that he was putting out recently. It was one of the Avengers books. I can't think of the title right now, but I picked that up and brought it home. I read it for the first time. I just flipped through and I fell in love with. I was left on a cliffhanger basically, and I was hooked ever since. I was like, well, I got to keep reading this. So, it was the Infinity Wars. That's what it was. That run. So yeah, from there I just kind of fell into it. I'm one of those people who, when I pick up a hobby, I really get into the hobby. Just like I mentioned before, Magic the Gathering, I used to attempt to play on a pro level. I was actually very involved trying to travel different places. And now that I'm into comics, I'm just like all in on, the graded books and keys and reading every day and things like that. So that's kind of the gist of how I fell into comic books in general. It's been kind of a shorter ride, but at the same time, it feels like it's been a while.
Yeah, well, that's about like me. When I got back into collecting comics, I only had a short box of comics that survived the comic purge of 20 years ago. And so when I got back into comics last year, these things multiplied faster than gremlins in a hurricane, man. I mean, there's 7,600 comics that are sitting to my left here. So it is quite consuming, or can be quite consuming. So as far as comics, why X-Men? Was that one of the characters or teams that your dad worked on, or what was it that drew you to X-Men?
No, so it was actually earlier this year. It was right as like the pandemic kind of hit. I think I might have even been working from home at that time. So middle of March, maybe early March. And I ended up just, I've heard so much about Claremont. I mean, just the name, Chris Claremont, what he did for this series, and how he turned things around, especially people talk about, the earlier X-Men stuff and kind of question some of the stories and things like that from the earlier age. And so with that, I was just looking into, I was just intrigued with where it all went. I never really cared for the X-Men before that. Like I said, I watched them when I was a kid in the 90s. But I didn't even recall that much from the cartoon show. So being involved with or taking a shot at Claremont is what really got me hooked, kind of out of nowhere. And I literally was reading new books every day. That's why John and I do the show now. That's how he and I kind of realized that we were on the same page with, reading this Claremont stuff. Is he saw me reading a page by page, going through it, starting at 94, and literally just fell in love with everything about them. I think a lot of it's just the relatability of the characters, the situation, the way it ties into society today. Some really heavy topics, and I think that's a big reason as to why I really, I don't know, I fell for them. I'm really into them.
So I remember reading a newspaper article it's probably been 25 years ago, and it might have been longer than that because it was about the time that it wasn't too long after the Jim Lee X-Men series came out. So that's what, 91 or 92. And so when that came out, it was talking about the relatability, just what you were saying, the relatability of the X-Men characters. It's not that anybody can relate to having adamantium laced bones or a great healing factor. It's once these characters who are a makeshift motley crew of folks coming from all different backgrounds with just a couple things in common, can get together, and when they have issues, they take it as a family, and you can kind of feel that connection with them, and that's really good storytelling. Chris Claremont is not a very good short storyteller. He is a long storyteller.
Right.
And so he was on X-Men, I guess, from 94 or 95, all the way up into, when X-Men launched to that title for a couple of issues. He had this whole, so if you were born during that period of time, basically what you know of X-Men is Chris Claremont's X-Men. So to have that kind of an effect, I don't know that there's any other. I guess maybe McFarlane had an effect on how Spider-Man's drawn, in particular with the spaghetti string webs, right? But he wasn't on Spider-Man that long, but he did have an effect on it. But Chris Claremont, all those years of writing X-Men, and there were stints where he came back and wrote X-Men titles like Extreme X-Men and such. But that Uncanny run was just that, uncanny. Marvel doesn't really replicate that anymore, in large part because of, I guess, the rise of indies, but in particular the Image Boys, as they are known. When they left, they did not want to be beholden to any one artist or writer anymore. So that's why they swap them around to books, so that they're not stuck like Chuck when Jim Lee and all the rest of them left. They're like, who do we have now? Because that was all the big names on it.
Yeah, I know, for sure.
And so we got a couple more folks. We've got Perry up here lurking. I'm sure he's twerking. We'll leave that to your imagination. We've got Lady Fantastic, my neighbor to the north of me. What's going on? Also part of the Saturday morning cartoon crew. So be sure to check out my channel for at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time Saturday, and her and several others will be joining us to sell. So there's another little commercial plug. We got ME Comics up in the house, and we are doing great. And we're talking about X-Men. So, so you answered how you kind of got into X-Men. So tell me this: who is your favorite X-Men?
Oh man, I was like, he's probably gonna ask me.
So
yeah, it's really tough. I definitely jump around from time to time. I mean, it's such an, I don't know, I feel like it's such an impossible question for me. The ones that come to mind are Colossus, Wolverine, Storm. I'm cheating because I'm just saying all these names right now. But I mean, I'm gonna put Storm up there as my favorite overall. And I think I love just her leadership of what she's turned into and taken over throughout some of the Claremont stuff that I've read so far. And just, I mean, there's some issues where she really kicks butt, and or a lot of issues really. But on top of that, just like, she's like the comic book wifey. Like anyone that draws her, I'm so interested to see how they recreate her and her look, and how she dresses, and her different hair changes and things like that. So really just an attractive character, and at the end of the day, she's a boss, and so you got to love that.
Who else could be attractive with a mohawk? Except right. And, the great thing about Storm, and you mentioned this, was the fact that she can be a leader of the X-Men, because at times, there's the 201 issue where she beats Cyclops even without her powers, just her abilities. And then she also has led the X-Men with X-Men Gold. When I say X-Men Gold, not the series that just recently came out, but Uncanny X-Men 281. So her leadership there, but she's also able to step back and be a great supporting character too. And I think there's some utility in her character, and I would lay that towards Chris Claremont. And and talking about that, because comics in general are on a big diversity push, and so I'm not going to make this this stream. We're going to talk about comics, but there's a big diversity push, which I'm okay with. Just to be on the record, I'm totally okay with it. The market dictates what people want, and so it doesn't matter to me. But if people want to take a playbook of how to diversify your cast of characters, take it from Giant Size X-Men 1.
Yeah.
I mean, and when it was released, was there any more of a diverse group of folks? You had a Russian, you had a German who was blue, you had a Canadian, you had a Japanese guy, you had an Irishman, you had an African, you had all these people from all over the world, black, white, you had an Apache Indian. It didn't matter, right? And they were able to pull it together where it's like, I don't really care, that you're black or you're white or you're male or female. I don't really care.
Right.
What I care about is your interaction between you and the other members of the team.
Yeah.
Claremont was able to weave that so perfectly that it doesn't feel forced, because I feel like there's times that people, they're like, okay, we're going to forcefully diversify this character just for the sake of diversification. And it feels forced, and the public at large pushes back against it. But I feel like that if they'll just take the playbook from Chris Claremont and then Giant Size X-Men 1, they won't have an issue.
It's true. Yeah. No, big time. It's and I think that's just another reason that it stood out to me, was just the diversity of when I got into really reading these, and the fact that it was a team. It was a team that was like, it was almost a little more soap opera-y than than your typical hero and cape kind of story arc.
Right.
I think it's just another reason I really gravitated towards X-Men as I started reading more of it. But yeah, totally agree on what you're saying.
And so, Lady Fantastic, let's see, Simply Incredible Podcast says, I don't have a fave character, but I do love the Dark Phoenix run. Of Chris Claremont's runs, that's probably the most famous one. It's been attempted to make a movie twice with utter failure. And, again, if you don't want to repeat the same mistakes, don't keep doing the same stuff. Dark Phoenix, if it takes 2 movies to do Infinity Gauntlet, which was only 6 issues, Dark Phoenix shaped the X-Men for years. How do you feel like you can fit that in one movie?
Right.
You can't. And it's because you end up leaving important parts where they're building up. So let's think about if Marvel had tried to put Thanos at the beginning, instead of working up to that with the end credit scenes and everything was leading up to that, it would have been a failure. But because of the way they've done it, and I feel like Dark Phoenix should have been that, right? It was kind of the climax of, once you're already attached to these characters, what they're going through matters. I don't think you can get that in one movie. I might be wrong. But yeah. And so let's see here. We've got Lady Fantastic says, yeah, Claremont made them different, but focused on their similarities. That's right. And I feel like as a whole, I'm tired of comic writers trying to divide us rather than unite us. Don't tell me I'm stupid. Why don't you just show what Lady says right here, show that we're not so different. Okay? We don't have to grow up on the same side of the tracks. We don't have to all be male or female.
Right.
We have more things in common than we do different.
Yep.
And so why not just focus on that stuff? I believe, and I'm going to get preachy here, but anyhow, I believe that if we focused on what Dr. King said, to not be judged by the color of your skin, but the content of your character, then we don't have to worry about that. And I feel like that X-Men did just that, right? So
big time. Yeah. Well put.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Dazzler, Jeff says, the Dazzler scene was the only good 30 seconds of that debauchery of a film. And so we're talking about the Dark Phoenix and talking about Chris Claremont. We can kind of dive into the Dark Phoenix saga. So I'm assuming you've read the Dark Phoenix saga,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So I know, I'm sure you already know that Claremont fully meant for Jean Grey to stay dead.
Right.
It was, I think, if I remember correctly, Jim Shooter, who was still the editor at that time, was really wanting a definitive, okay, this is what she has to die in order to settle, what she did to that planet. And Claremont's like, okay, well, so they write them, and then years later they bring her back because they're wanting the original one in X Factor.
Right.
Yeah, and this whole resurrection thing to me really started right there in large part. Here and there, if you had a character that just you thought was dead, because it happened to Professor X early on several times, and the Changeling was really Professor X, and they find out Professor X is still alive, but that only lasted a couple issues and easily explained away. But when somebody's dead and buried, like Jean Grey was for years, brought back, then dead and buried until recently for years, it just takes away from the gravitas when you have, this person died. That means something, right?
Right.
And they did that with Wolverine. And for what? I mean, they left him dead. They let Laura Kinney, which I felt like was forced diversity, but I feel like she came into her own eventually to get that fan base where people like X-23. But, for what? Just to bring him back? Because then people are reading it and you're like, he's going to be back. It doesn't matter. Whereas I felt like, okay, like Jean Grey, they came out with Madeline Pryor. Okay, that's a replacement for her, but that's fine. It's not her.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely different. I remember I just started reading X Factor not too long ago, so that was definitely like I knew the idea of the story and bringing her back, but I never really got into it up until recently. So it was interesting to see how they did that, and like I look at issue 137 now a little differently, knowing that even on the CGC label, doesn't it say like in quotes that her death or whatever?
Yep, it says in quotations. So, here's a lesson in CGC. Don't send something to CGC that's never been pressed before.
Let me write that down. Hold on.
Yeah, because this is an example of that. There's a bunch of pressable defects on this thing. And I just got comics. When I went in comics before, there was no such thing as CGC, right?
Right.
So, that's a live and learn with that one.
That's
but yeah. Well, we got Cat 60 up in the house. Right. And so the funny thing was about Claremont. He's very outspoken. Several people in the chat have mentioned about him being miffed with the Phoenix deal, and I don't know if you ever seen his idea of introducing Storm into the MCU.
No, I didn't.
So he did this interview, and he's like, as a storyteller, he's always thinking about how to write into the next story. And so his thought was to have Storm be T'Challa's, Black Panther's sister. Oh. So the reason why is because Angela Bassett, who plays his mom in the movie, was Chris Claremont's ideal person to play Storm in the original X-Men.
Oh, okay.
So it would be kind of fitting that she would walk out, and this is what way he told it. She walks out, and there's this big giant rainstorm, and she just waves her hand, and it stops. And then basically her daughter inherits her mutant power, but it was kind of a nod to that's who he wanted to do. Now she's too old to play Storm now, right. But yeah, that was his idea back in 2000 when they shot the first X-Men movie, was to make her Aurora as opposed to Halle Berry. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. And, the only reason, it was not Halle Berry's acting chops that landed her there. Just saying. Just saying. And so I always felt like Rogue was Carol Danvers with a Southern accent. Rogue is so much better than Carol Danvers. Well, and essentially she is, because once she touches Carol and keeps her powers, she is like that, right?
Mhm.
But it's funny because that with Rogue being from Mississippi, she in the movie come from Meridian, Mississippi, which is 2 hours away from me,
Mm.
and it's just kind of that connection there. And remembering her from the animated series was, they said, "Well, you look nervous." I'm as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. And, uh, the lady that done the voice for her, and I regret it still that I did not get her to sign a pop when I saw her in was it January or
Mm.
yeah, January of this year. But who would have thought that the coronavirus would shut all these cons down, right?
Yeah.
And have a chance.
Yeah.
Why you're so protective of Rogue? Yeah, that's right. And then Gambit being from New Orleans. New Orleans is only 2 hours down the road, and so he was always interesting to me from that standpoint. And my first copy of X-Men 266, I traded for the glow-in-the-dark Lantern 50.
Oh wow.
And that guy thought he got one over on me.
That's great.
And it was funny with X-Men or Gambit and Rogue. And I don't want to say something because then I'm putting it out to the mythos, and then eventually people will want to mess it up.
Yeah.
But there's been so much drama that led up to the X-Men Gold where him and Rogue got married. And so to me, they're the kind of Jean Grey, Scott Summers dynamic.
Mhm.
And for the record, I hated Grant Morrison's run because of what he did to couple. The rest of it, whatever. Okay. But what he did with the White Queen and all that kind of stuff just ruined the X-Men for me during that time period.
Oh man, I haven't read it.
Phantom X is probably the best thing that came out of that.
Hmm.
And it was really built on by other writers like Rick Remender that kind of cleaned that character up. Uncanny X-Force, best consistent title in the X lines in more recent years, but I digress. Hidden Jim says likes your timeless variants back there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I just threw them up there too. I'm gonna keep the X-Men up for a while.
Yeah, I just got the Angel one, which was X Factor.
Mhm.
That was the last one I was lacking. I had all the rest of them, and
Nice.
that was kind of how I pigeonholed myself from getting all of them. I was like, okay, I'm just going to get the X-Men.
So I thought I was only going to get the X-Men, but then I ended up getting every single one.
I didn't get everyone. That Daredevil's pretty much fire. I got the Spider-Woman one. I think that's the only one outside of X-Men I got.
Yeah, I love them. They look great.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely awesome. That Silver Surfer one, that one's pretty hot too.
Yeah.
But Jeff says I've got 27 of the timeless variants. Well, then you got the sketch variant, and
Oh yeah, I try to stay away from that.
Marvel's coming back with the villains. You just wait.
Yep, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so and talking about storylines, we kind of bebop back over to Chris Claremont.
Yeah.
Because the first X-Men book that I got was Classic X-Men. Classic X-Men number 2, which is X-Men. It's either 94 or 95. Because the Classic X-Men would have different covers, and then a lot of times their back covers were nice too, and then they sometimes would have short stories in the back too that were separate from the old tale. Right. But back in the day, before digital comics and being able to order online and stuff, if you didn't hit those comics when they came out, then you didn't get them, right? Right. That's how you had to get them. I was at a con last year, and this guy was next to me digging through some boxes, and we were talking about X-Men. And he said, I tell you the worst mistake I ever made collecting comic books. He said, I was collecting on the newsstand, and X-Men 93 came out. So X-Men 93 is a reprint because, you know, they had gone into reprints because they weren't popular.
Mhm.
And it's the cover with Cyclops shooting at Quicksilver. And in the back of that comic, it says, next issue, the X-Men versus the Avengers. And so he says, oh, man, awesome. I want to see X-Men versus the Avengers. But that never happened.
Right.
Size X-Men 1 came out.
Yep.
And he said, this ain't the Avengers. I don't want this stupid garbage.
Garbage.
What are you doing? You know? Oh, I mean, that's one of those stupid. If you only knew then what you know now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely be a change there.
Oh.
So we've got who's up in here? We've got Hip Hops Me Team Nerd Podcast. What's going on?
That's Steve. What's up, Steve? Good to see you, brother.
And Hidden Gem says, love classic X-Men. Talking about classic X-Men, the Art Adams cover for classic X-Men #1 was recently homaged this week with Wolverine 350. So it's the Age of Apocalypse. So let's talk about Age of Apocalypse. Have you ever read Age of Apocalypse?
So I actually have not read Age of Apocalypse.
Okay.
I am still it's crazy because I love it. I love what I've been reading so far of the X-Men, but I am still so new to so much of it. It's interesting because, like I said, I know Claremont, like early Claremont, and then I know the new Hickman stuff. And I know some spoilers in between, but I never actually read anything in between yet. And it's all been on my list and I just haven't. So I stopped reading Claremont on 143 when John Byrne left. So that was the last one that I actually read. I know some story arcs and things that happened since then, but yeah, I still have a lot of exploring to do when it comes to the X-Men and just a lot of the characters in general.
So look, we've got 16 people, according to my count, in the chat. Mm-hmm. If we can get 25 people in the chat, then I'm going to give away a book tonight.
Ooh.
Okay.
All right. I like that.
And so what better book to give away than one of the most iconic X-Men covers for multiple reasons, and that is X-Men 50.
Oh, nice one. That is a beauty.
Steranko goodness right here. I've got my other copy signed right there by the man himself earlier this year. And so, yeah, this X-Men 50 can be somebody's in the chat. There goes Mr. Garrow Clayman. You don't listen to the rules.
So, Mr. G.
So share us out over on the social medias, you know, all that kind of good stuff, and see if we can get 25 people in. And if so, we will do this giveaway. So the good thing about this particular book, talking about X-Men 50, is awesome cover, second appearance of Polaris, first cover appearance. And Steranko did like those 3 covers back to back. That's the first logo.
Oh, man.
So this is the logo they still use today. Mm-hmm. And if you ever talk to Steranko, he'll tell you that they stole it from him, didn't pay him nothing for it. He came up with it, and they've used it ever since.
Oh,
so
man.
If you look at X-Men 49, this is the old X-Men logo.
Yep.
And this is where it started, and it's the same one they still use today, except they added Uncanny at some point, right? Mm-hmm. And so this should have been signed by Steranko, but some eBay seller doesn't know what they're doing, and I got it when I got home from the day of Steranko's. Because I got the other 2 issues signed by him, but I didn't get that one because some eBay seller doesn't know how to do it. And so when I said something about his shipping practices, I said, yeah, I'd really like to have that by such and such a date. I read that by such and such a date. He goes, oh, that's nice. Now I was kind of dropping a hint, dude.
Right. Damn, that sucks.
Yeah, it does suck. But so anyway, if we can get 25 people in the chat, we'll give that book away. So yeah, there's an iconic moment in time with Steranko changing the logo and the Polaris cover. Certainly one of the more notable covers. Lady Fantastic says Steranko's the best Hulk artist. Prove me wrong. Does some great work there. Captain America. Of course, Nick Fury, the Shield books, iconic covers there. Steranko is an interesting character. If you ever get a chance to talk to him, go with some time, and don't mind if you sit towards the back of the line, because you'll hear a different story every time he tells somebody. He's not telling the same story over and over again. He's telling a different story.
Right.
When I went and seen him, I was sitting there just listening all the stories. It was so interesting getting all. He goes, "Man, I'm sorry it took so long." I said, "No, don't bother. I was enjoying myself." He's done some Calendar Girl cover things, and he was talking about how Miss June or July was his girlfriend, and she agreed to let him draw her nude and all this other kind of stuff. So it was really interesting. Really interesting. Age of Apocalypse. So Age of Apocalypse is the quintessential 90s X-Men story, okay? Leading up to it, Legion, Professor X's son, wants to stop Magneto because he feels like, Magneto is his dad's whole problem. So he wakes up out of a coma and says he's going to go back in time and stop Magneto. And he's going to kill Magneto. So, but what happens is Magneto, Professor X jumps in front of Magneto, and Professor X dies. So it changes the whole timeline, and they rebooted the series, related series, like Wolverine became Weapon X for 4 series. Gambit, Generation X, which was out at that time, became X Generation or something like that. So they did some kind of little play off of every single deal.
Right.
And they started with Alpha and then ended with Omega. And then the reboot back to the regular universe came with Prime. And then you just picked up the same numbering. So yeah, it's the best what if story ever told for X-Men.
Okay.
Because basically it's telling you what would have happened had Professor X died and Magneto became the X-Men.
Right. Damn.
He asked a good question. So at different points in Professor X's history, he's been able to walk. Different reasons why that is. So when Legion went back in time to stop it, this was before Professor X was put in a wheelchair by fighting, not Magneto, as the movie tells us. What he fought a character named Lucifer, and that's how he lost the use of his legs. So, so this was pre that, and
Okay.
yeah, ejector seat. That is a good guess. And so then, in the 90s, they came out with this, hover chair, so to speak, which was a little bit easier for him to get around. But yeah, there were times it went kind of wonky on him too. But yeah, you got to get the trade or something like that. They're fairly inexpensive to get all the issues in there.
Mm-hmm.
And just knowing what I told you, what led up to it. If the trade doesn't have those Legion, it's called Legion Quest. It's like 4 different part series. So several of the X-Men go back in time to try to stop it from happening. Bishop is one of them. Mm-hmm. So when everything changes, the only one that doesn't change is Bishop because he's time displaced in the first place.
Right.
So he doesn't change, and so the X-Men in the Age of Apocalypse universe find Bishop, and Bishop, explains to him this didn't always be this way, or this wasn't always this way, and so they go on a quest to get the Myocron crystal so that they can go back in time and stop Professor X from ever dying, and so that's what happens, and then it goes back to the deal, but yeah.
I'll have to see if it's on. I use a lot of the Marvel Unlimited app.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's on Marvel Unlimited.
So
yeah. Totally is.
Nice.
Yeah. So basically, the timeline stops with the Myocron crystal crystallizing everything. So one of those storylines was Wolverine sticking the claw through Sabretooth's head,
Mm.
And so when they came back, it was like it never left off. So Sabretooth was kind of acting like a little child for a while until finally he fights Psylocke. And so Psylocke was, so this is kind of a replay of X-Men 213 or 211 or 213, one of them, where he fights Psylocke, Sabretooth fights Psylocke in the mansion, and Psylocke wins. So this is kind of a round two. He guts Psylocke, and then that's when they start using the Crimson Dawn logo on Psylocke, at least until they finally decide to get rid of it.
Right.
So yeah, Mr. Garrell says Bishop top X-Men. Yes, I feel like he's underused. I mean, the mullet says it all. So I feel like Chris Claremont was kind of in his prime when he was talking or when he was writing X-Men originally. Now, when he came back and was writing Extreme X-Men, it got kind of wonky, but a lot of stuff did in the early 2000s, hence the industry. But one of the things that changed about Bishop was that he had this mutant ability to be able to track other mutants, kind of like Caliban or Caliban, depending on, tomato. But he had that ability to do that. Let's see. Never finished my Bishop Cable Miami Vice spoof comic I was toying around with in high school. I need to finish. Yeah. And House of M. Have you ever read House of M?
I haven't, but I know about it. I've never read it though.
Man, no. Look, better late than never. Better late than never. What's going on, John? But yeah, so House of M was another good storyline if you want to read a storyline in X-Men. And so Scarlet Witch goes crazy. I feel like a lot of that is going to be in the WandaVision TV show.
Okay. Right.
Her insanity. And I'm wondering, it's just speculation. I know absolutely nobody at Marvel. This is just one man's less than humble opinion. But I feel like that, knowing what happened in the House of M storyline, at the end, she says no more mutants.
Right.
So that's when all but, was it 198 or 98? Somebody in the chat can maybe correct me. Mutants were left. So everybody else was depowered. So a lot of the mutants lost their powers and stuff like that. And if you fast forward to Hickman's run, I think it was in the main X-Men title when Apocalypse killed one of the characters so that she could be reborn with her mutant abilities.
Yeah.
That's from that, because she was depowered in after House of M. And so Lady Fantastic, 198 mutants. That's what I thought. And so basically the other ones are depowered until later. And so I feel like she's going to create mutants into existence, because I feel like she's a mutant. Now that Marvel owns Fox, they're going to, I think, go back to her and Quicksilver being mutants more than the whole Infinity Stone thing, that the Infinity Stone really just triggered her mutant ability, but she was already a mutant in the first place.
See, I was so confused about that. I heard two different things, and I didn't understand that. I understood she was a mutant initially, like when she was first created in comics, but then later they made her not a mutant, or I didn't understand how they were doing that.
Yeah, and that's why, because Fox owned the rights to mutants.
Okay.
So they couldn't make a movie with them in it and say they're a mutant.
Right.
So then they went back on the comic side and said, well, really, they weren't really ever mutants. They were really the High Evolutionary really messed them up and remade them. And in that, if you are reading the House of X or what followed thereafter, you'll hear them referred to as they really talk bad about them. I can't remember what they refer to them as, but yeah, so yeah, so Lady has some strong things about it. Yeah, so appreciate it.
Cool, Steve.
Of course, Wolverine, and that was also at that time because basically Scarlet Witch remade everything into her own little realm of reality, which is what I think's happening or going to happen with WandaVision. So she made her own reality. Well, the only one that remembered it at first was, or one of the only ones was Wolverine. But the other kind of side effect was that Wolverine all of a sudden remembered everything pre-Weapon X that he never remembered before.
Oh,
So
wow.
his name's James Howlett, not not Logan, and how that came to be. They then came back with the origin series and kind of told the backstory of how he came to where he was at, and his and Sabretooth's whole connection there. So,
Wow.
because at one point in time, Sabretooth was maybe Wolverine's dad, and so they kind of toyed back and forth with that.
Man.
Thomas, what's going on?
I like Mr. Garrell said, no good, you're going to have a few $1,000s in trades after this show. I got a lot of homework to do.
Look, you got the Marvel Unlimited app. So if you don't mind reading digital, then
Yeah.
certainly, that's a less expensive way to do it. And then if you end up wanting to go back and collect them, you can collect most of the Age of Apocalypse in particular in the dollar bins. And so maybe except for Alpha and Omega, those are chromium covers because that was all the rad back then, right? Those chromium covers. Yeah, 4 more people to go. The chat is anxious to try to win this book right here. I wouldn't know why. And so if they get up to 25, for those of you who are just now coming in, John's Comic with Kids shared it on YouTube. I got a notification on my watch.
Nice.
So yeah, so if we get up to 25, we're going to do this for a giveaway. So just letting you know. Yeah, Justin's he's got a lot of homework. Okay, you're right, Mr. Carroll. He's got a lot of homework, a lot of catching up to do. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of lackluster that you can kind of gloss over because not a lot of stuff happened during that time. And I hope we don't lose some viewership over this, but I don't like Grant Morrison's run on X-Men. Okay, I said this earlier when not as many people were in here, but now, I don't know. Maybe John loves it, or maybe Lady Fantastic loves it. But yeah, so it is definitely not my favorite, and it's not because he was trying to do different things with the Cassandra Nova deal. And like I said, Phantom X is a character certainly worked out by Rick Remender later, but I just don't like what he did to the dynamic of Jean Grey and Cyclops, because I felt like after everything that they had been through, everything they'd been through, her dying or him thinking she was dead, his wife getting married, finding out she's a clone, the whole drama behind that, losing his son, which we found out was later Cable, then all that kind of stuff. And then finally they get married, this culmination of they've been a couple forever. They finally get married. Happiness can endure. No, we're going to make him have a thing, and he's going to have this mental affair with White Queen. It just made zero sense to me. And that's one of my beefs with Hickman's current run is this whole orgy thing they got going on it's like, can we just leave this out? Okay. I mean, so I don't think you've read Morrison's run. You can pick up the 2 issues dealing with Phantom X, drop the rest. Don't worry about it. From Age of Apocalypse to Hickman is barely empty space in my X-Men knowledge. So there are some good stories in there, but it is kind of a wasteland of sorts, or no man's land between those periods of time. So let's talk fast forward to Hickman and the House of X. So were you on House of X and Powers of 10 from the get-go, or did you come in and read and catch up?
No, I jumped in. I mean, it was already out at that time. My plan was I wanted to finish up the John Byrne era of what he was doing with Claremont. And then when I finished that, because there was so much hype about House of X, Powers of 10 that I wanted to get into it. And I was talking to John about it for a long time. And he was saying how much he enjoyed it. So eventually I got there. I jumped into to those 12 issues. And I've been loving it ever since, really. I mean, I'm still not caught up. I haven't gotten into the whole X of Swords story arc yet, but I'm around like issue 10, issue 11 on all the X titles. I've been reading them now. I've been reading them in order as they've been released. So that's been my goal thus far. But I read Powers House of X, Powers of 10, and I really enjoyed that when I read it.
So if you are not as familiar with some of the lesser known story arcs, you probably never read the Chosen 12.
No.
So not to spoil anything for anybody in the chat, because I'm sure it's on Marvel Unlimited, but that's a pretty good storyline too. And so basically Apocalypse gets these Chosen 12 mutants, and he's going to become the all-powerful one and inhabit Cable, I believe. And Cyclops stops it. And so for a while they think Cyclops is dead. But that's really when they brought Cable into the fold more. As an X-Men, essentially the son of the X-Men leader, and he even hung his outfit had the visor, Cyclops visor. He wore it kind of as a necklace. So that's a decent storyline too. But House of X. So House of X is what got me back into reading X-Men.
Okay.
Because when I got out of reading comics, I was like you. I'd pick up a trade here or there, and then I started watching YouTube. And what's the name of the channel? They do a lot of explaining videos. Is it
Comics Explained?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And so they did one on House of X, and I said, this seems interesting. And so when Hickman came in and they did the House of X and Powers of 10, I think he did it masterfully, because he brought in a lot of little Easter eggs that only age-old X-Men fans would get.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like so obscure and so big of a part of the story that a newbie would read it and go, what the crap is he talking about? Now I got to go read all these back issues to even know what he's talking about. Right. So I feel like he instituted it really good.
Yeah.
And the conversation between Nightcrawler and Wolverine before they go to attack the Sentinel. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
And so Wolverine basically says, I wonder if there's a heaven or whatever like that. So, I mean, it's just real heart to heart. Nightcrawler and Wolverine have been through, thick as thieves for the longest, even thinking at one time one or the other one was dead. Yep. We were still there. That's that giant size X-Men camaraderie right there. And, I mean, it was great. It was masterful storytelling, at least in my humble opinion. Mm-hmm. And so, let's see. Is the answer Donna Rawson's print right? Okay. What's going on, Shelby Comics in the house? What's going on? Yeah, we, according to my count, Mr. Garrow, we are 4 away from having 25. So, Tacoma dropped the single issues, and but love reading the house. And they did a really nice job with that. And to be honest, I really need to start picking up more trades as opposed to the floppies because of room. Yep. But, I say that I'm going to the comic shop and there it is, and it's an awesome cover. And
yeah. Gets you every time.
It gets me every time. And I think my LCS has me figured out, because he'll throw one in there and I'm like, this ain't on my pull list. He's like, no, it's not. Oh, okay.
How'd that get in there? That's great.
So John's Comic Book Kids says, I'd be curious what you think about Sword of X of Swords Tacoma. If you read it as a trade, I wonder if you liked it. Now, we got Kevin, Leave It to Comics. What's going on? Michael Ackery up in the house. We're up to 23. So anyways, we'll go. Okay. So as far as your opinion, you said you're up to date with Ten of Swords, or did you tell me that you didn't read it, or X of Swords?
I haven't caught up to X of Swords yet.
Okay.
Not there yet. I'm right behind. So I'm excited to, though. I mean, I want to get into it. Just now that I have a little bit of vacation time, is my plan to kind of try to catch up if I can. I'm reading so many different things right now. It's
right.
Not enough time in the day, it feels like.
I know, right? I mean, I'll sit there and what I've done, because I've gone back and collected runs because I'm a run collector. You mentioned earlier that you're a key collector.
Mhm.
So run collectors, I think, is a bigger disease just because I have it. But base wise, but so I have read X of Swords, and I'm not going to ruin it for you.
All right.
I won't even tell you what my opinion of it is. I'll let you form your own. So it probably, in fairness to it, would probably read better as a graphic novel. And so that is something that Marvel in particular has started doing. They write comic books to graphic novelize them.
Hmm.
Okay, so they do it with that intent and purpose.
The big picture, right?
And so then by virtue of that, you get filler books with no good stories in them. And then, or you get a story like Tom King's Batman that was spread out way longer than what it should have been just because you're trying to build an omnibus. And it's like, wow, okay.
Right.
Yes, Comics at Law is in the house. What's going on? And yes, you did it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have got 26 people up in the house. And so here is what we are going to do. How about that? How about that? We're going to do a giveaway. So since you are the guest on the show, would you rather than pick a number, or would you rather a trivia question?
Ooh,
we got 30 up in the house. Hey.
Oh man. I mean, trivia is always fun, but a number is probably more efficient and maybe a little more randomized.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna throw a hard one out there. And since we're talking, we got 32 people in the house. Thank you for showing up tonight. Not only the earlier part, go back and catch it on the rewind, smash the like button, subscribe to both of our channels, but you're going to have a chance to earn this book right here, X-Men 50, Steranko goodness. So what we're going to do, some people are saying number because that's so random. It will blow the chat up for sure because I've been in things. Let's do a number, and then people going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, they got the fast internet and they're going down. Yeah. So let's test the chat's X-Men knowledge. How about that?
All right.
So I'm got to say this question real fast because some X-Men aficionados are going to get to go clicking their those little keys on that keyboard, and I don't want to give them time to do it. I want to have said the thing, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a starting line in after I say the question, and so the starting line has to be dropped, and the correct answer has to be done. Spelling doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but we got to know definitively that you know what you're talking about. Okay, so Mystique has 3 kids. Who are they?
Ooh, that's a good one.
2 biological and 1 adopted.
Need some of that game show music right now.
Agree. Yes, that is a good. You're right on one of them.
I love that.
So, yeah.
People got to be Googling at least.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you got to say all 3. You don't have to. You don't have to do them singularly, John. So, all right. It looks like we got it. So everybody else can kind of pause. Everybody must have been clogging up the chat. That's why it was taking so long. I was like, is this really that hard? So, according to the answer is Nightcrawler, Graydon Creed, and Rogue. So according to yours, is Mars Comics the first one?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then there's a bunch of other ones. I don't know if they got their Googles out or whatever like that. But but that is oh, and so I said 3, but there are more. And Big O did bring out Dark Claw. So the Children of the Atom storyline, I believe. Wolverine and Mystique's son. So I believe that's Dark Claw. Correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but Wolverine and Mystique had a son in an alternate universe, and so it's funny because Wolverine at some point during the story goes, when he makes some, he said, "I'm never having more kids." I'm never having more kids. When he realizes it's his. So I am seeing. Where'd he go? Was it? What did I say? ME Comics.
Mars
Comics. Thank you. So Mars Comics. Anybody in the chat say anything differently or see anything differently? Let me know. But yeah, I see Mars Comics and Graydon Creed. So he is the human son of Sabretooth and Mystique. So he was the head, I believe, of the Friends of Humanity. Eventually, he was killed. I think he's been brought back and forth a couple of times, but he is a human son of the two mutants together. Rogue, was obviously adopted, taken in by Mystique and Destiny, and then Nightcrawler is her son by birth. And that was kind of hinted at a long time ago. There was a story that was done with Claremont on, because Mystique is his character too. Mystique originally appeared in Miss Marvel, and Miss Marvel was a title that was written by Chris Claremont.
Right.
And so Miss Marvel ends up getting canceled. So if you read Avengers Annual 10, Rogue's first appearance, a lot of it doesn't really make any sense. So there was a story that was supposed to go towards the end of the Miss Marvel thing that wasn't told until much later. They have since released that story, but it didn't kind of really make any Avengers Annual 10, which, by the way, has got to be the worst cover of any major appearance out there.
Pretty bad.
I mean, it's like no good place for signature placements on there. Of course, back then they didn't really sign on the cover as much as
as they do now.
As they do now. They were signing inside.
It's a very loud cover. A lot of things going on too.
Oh yeah, way too busy. And then you add signatures up in there, and it does. So pick a number. Well, we're not doing the number thing again, but so as far as Mars Comics, Mars, thank you and congratulations for getting that in. Hit me up on IG, and I will get that out in the mail to you.
Nice.
So you mentioned X-Men backing up a few years, going back to X-Men the animated series. I kind of feel like the X-Men as a whole are connected, and if you're of a certain age, are connected because of X-Men the animated series.
Yeah, I can see that. A lot of people I talk to, if they grew up in the 90s or that was like some of the cartoons that they had watched, it definitely resonates, I think, a little bit more with them for that show.
Yeah, I mean, Batman the animated series, they were really putting out some quality content there, and so yeah, and so probably the more recognizable X-Men are because, again, of the X-Men animated series, because they've seen them all the time.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I do the same thing. I also Morph, as Morph gets shot down by the Sentinels. And then I still get chills when Wolverine, says, "This one's for you, Morph." I'm like bringing a tear to my eyes again. And so it was great. And then Beast, because the person didn't want nothing to do with him because he was a mutant, and he's like, he gave some spiel, how he was very poetic, especially in the animated series. And he said, something about being a man and all that kind of stuff. So Read. Oh, yeah. When I read Storm talking in the comics, I always hear a voice actors from the cartoon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and or the part where they want Wolverine to empty out his pockets. The problem's not in my pants, lady. I have a pop that's signed by the voice actor for Wolverine up there, but yeah, it's cool. And there was I don't have you ever there's a book out that I want to get now that talks about the animated series and kind of the behind the scenes stuff.
Oh yeah.
But there was a video I saw somewhere, and they were talking about it, and because of the rights between Fox and Marvel and stuff, they had to sneak characters into the X-Men series.
Oh wow.
And so, but they snuck some characters into the X-Men series, and the way they done it was when they were writing the scripts, they would call them something else.
Oh.
So the people that read and approved the scripts would say, "Okay, yeah, that's fine, whatever." And so then when they would put it out to cartoon, it was the real character, and they're like, "Well, no, that wasn't," But by then it's all right. X-Collect says, "I'm here because I heard free. What's up, people?" Yeah. So unfortunately, we've already gave away the free thing. The next generation, yeah. And then of course, if you're a Next Generation fan or from that era of Star Trek, which I was never a big Trekkie, but more Star Wars. But if you're that era, of course, him being Professor X just made perfect sense.
Yeah.
So Schultz says, I stopped reading and collecting in 95. I started up again in February and come back and find out Wolverine had 14.
Yeah, busy guy.
Wolverine, Jason Aaron made Wolverine a male hoe, essentially. So in his run, basically all these people attack Wolverine. This guy wants to, when Wolverine goes to hell, that storyline, he attacks all these people and kills them all. And then the guy that hates him so bad says, "Oh, by the way, all those were your kids. So you just kill all your offspring." And of course, there's those. And then I mentioned him and Mystique's deal with the Children of the Atom storyline. I believe Bendis did that. Then you've got X-23, who at one point was retconned to not be a clone, but to be essentially her mom was artificially inseminated with Wolverine's stuff, so that so he's technically really her father. And then he was written or Dakin, ever how you want to say that, he was kind of written into there. And McClellan's Scandal. And so I was watching Perry's review of Return of the King the other day, and so it was funny because he was there was Gandalf, and of course the same guy played Magneto, and so I'm like, "What's Magneto doing up in here?" I was typing in the chat, I was like, "What's Magneto doing up in here?" They're the king.
Oh gosh.
Look, there's no telling, and they'll write anything that they can in to try to do a new spin on it. And Hidden Gem says, "Are you arguing in the knockout for this season?" I am arguing. I'm doing Michelangelo from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles up against the Green Power Ranger, and how it ended up falling out. I did, talking about X-Men, I did argue Bishop could beat Thor. So Lady Fantastic was Thor. It goes to show you that if you're on that show, that a lot of it's just trash talk, because I totally trash talk my way to that win.
Oh, I got to see that.
Low voter turnout really was very beneficial to me on that one. And he says, "Yeah, that was trash." it was funny because I didn't have any chance in Hades of beating Thor, right? I mean,
Right.
Bishop's cool, but he's not Thor, right?
Right.
She had the facts. I mean, she had the books. I mean, she had done all her homework, and I'm in a hotel room. I ain't got none of that stuff. And I had done figured out. I said the only way that I can beat her is to trash talk the smack. I mean, just smack talk, and that's what I did. And ladies just like, what? She just
I
said,
gotta see that.
yeah, it was a close vote, and so it worked out good that there wasn't a lot of people on that stream, but it was fun. It was fun.
Nice.
And so talking about so a similar type of show, Comic Gories. I'm actually going to be on Comic Gories in a couple of weeks.
Oh, nice.
So that'll be cool. I'm a little nervous on that one because, like, if I ever watch Comic Gories, I can think of the best books, right?
Right.
You know, to be like in the heat of the moment. I mean, my comics are in order, but I mean, I've got to think, okay, that one's X-Men, whatever, or that's this comic. And so it's in this box right here and it's on, you know, a certain amount of time. So I'm going to, a lot of times I'll do my videos over at my desk, the more professional side of my man cave. But I'll do that from here so that I'm right next to them. So I don't have to run across the room because I can,
whatever you need. Yeah.
It would provide a lot of comedic relief to hear, oh, boom. And then it's like, what happened? What happened to him? He tripped and fell, you know, on the show.
Yeah, I'd be nervous to go on that show. I watched it. I love everything, the community coming together and doing that. And I saw John was like looking for some guests at one point, and I thought about it. I'm like, nah, I just can't go on. I'd be too nervous. I think I'd get it wrong every time. Although I think I'd be a good debater though. So I don't know. Yeah. It's a back and forth.
And it's not all about the cover. It is about the cover, but it's not about the cover because, like I was saying about that with the matchup, Bueller went on there, and he trash talked his way to almost winning that show. Wow. And he didn't have near the books. I mean, he was just talking about that. But it's fun. It's you know, as much as I hate to lose in anything that I do because I'm highly competitive, it's fun to go on there and talk comics up with somebody. Kind of like what we're doing tonight with. With that. And then JR Team Nerd Herd says, go for it. So we're not pressuring you.
Damn it.
And John's Comics for Kids is still in the chat. You heard it here first. Hit him up, give him some dates, and pressure him into committing.
Oh, gosh.
Fast forwarding to now, of the current X-Men titles, which one is your favorite?
I think I got to go Marauders at the moment.
Okay. Why Marauders?
I'm just really digging the story arc that Kitty Pryde is taken in. Emma Frost. I didn't mention Emma Frost when you initially asked me, but she's up there too as one of my favorites. And so anything with her in it right now, especially, I love her character right now. She's another boss, as we were talking before about Storm. But yeah, I just kind of like where the story arc's going. Marauders is definitely up there, and then I actually really like New Mutants, which I don't know. I've heard mixed feelings about New Mutants, but I actually like that first story arc that they did, and going into the next one, seeing where they're going with that. So I don't know. It's a mix.
Yeah, Kate Pryde, by the way.
Kate Pryde, yes, Kate Pryde. That's right.
Well, you know, talking about Kitty, Sprite, Shadow Cat, whatever she wants to call herself these days, that is a character that has character development over time, right? She started out in the Dark Phoenix saga, started out as just a kid that the Hellfire Club was going after just as well as the X-Men were going after. And she, went through this metamorphosis over time to where she's what she is today.
Yeah.
And as far as Marauders is hit and miss for me. I mean, I'll get one issue of Marauders and go, man, that's pretty good. I like that. And then the next issue, I'm like, this is garbage. Why am I paying for this? And then I'll get the next one. I'll say, well, if it's not any better next time, I'm going to drop it. So I get the next time, and it's like, that's pretty good. It does it. Every other issue is garbage. And
it keeps you hooked.
yeah. And so, so I got Marauders 1. So then I skipped 2 and went to 3. which is the Shadowcat and Lockheed cover with her coming through the cover like that. And so I was like, well, I'm a completionist. Let me go back and get number 2.
You gotta own it, man.
Blast you, Marvel! Blast you, Jerry Dungan!
That's great.
But and so we were talking about how Marvel and some writers try to force things on people. I think that Iceman, talking about Marauders, is one of those deals. They totally changed his character from what he had been. And Marauders, up until the time that Kitty died, okay? So Iceman's like an Omega level mutant.
Right.
You know, he can kick butt, take names. So what I liked was when they finally used Iceman, like I knew Iceman. You know, he went in there, and when they were taking no prisoners type deal because they were trying to find out what happened to her. And I was like, okay, this is good storytelling. This is good Iceman right here. But yeah, so Marauders is hit and miss for me.
Well, it's interesting with Iceman. Iceman's like newer to me, as weird as it sounds, because of, as I've said, like I've read so much more of the Claremont. Now, Iceman was, involved in some of the Claremont stories and sprinkled in here and there, but I don't truly know like Iceman's power or his history. So reading some of this stuff now, I'm kind of taking it for what it is. Like I'm kind of just seeing it as it's being written and think that's what the character is.
Right.
So I don't see that forcingness as much as you're saying, but I mean, I get it if that's the case. You're used to what you're used to.
Right. Yeah. And so, Lady says, I don't see why Kitty wouldn't be Omega, and that's a great point, because with Kitty Pryde, she has trained up under Wolverine with martial arts. We saw, in my opinion, in X-Men Gold, saw her leadership ability for an X-Men team. She was kicking butt, taking names. And then in Marauders, which was part of the part that I liked, where she was phasing through people and then like dephasing them with, guns in them. And
yeah. That's great.
I mean, I was like, man, this is pretty good. And so to me, Kitty has taken this character arc over time, from the time Claremont introduced her to now. She's grown as a character. People have been able to write her and build her up. It's not a far stretch for me because of the way it was done. But like with Iceman, I'm like, you went from here to like here, and it just doesn't connect for me. But I guess you're thought that newer people wouldn't have that same background. That makes sense. And she can alter. Yeah, I mean, she's like Vision, right? She can alter herself and people that she's touching. In one of the issues of X-Men Gold, I forget which one it was, but essentially she did it to a whole building.
Oh, wow. Right?
So she phased the building so that it wouldn't hurt anybody. So, yeah, she's definitely that. Mr. Garrow, I just bought a ton load of X-Men Star Wars stuff. I'm going to send you a video later. As you say, I'm your drug pusher, so I'm going to send some drugs away. Something's weird. She's proud to be Jewish, and being Jewish, went and get a tattoo. Yeah, I didn't like the whole tattoo thing. I thought that was a little bit of a stretch. It wasn't a deal breaker to me, but it was kind of, that's a little pushing it. But her just being BA and kicking butt and taking names, that to me, that was, if you read X-Men Gold, or read, if you go back into the 90s and read Excalibur, when her and Pete Wisdom were dating each other, that kind of dynamic, she's been building up to this point now.
Man, I didn't realize they dated. It's interesting because like you mentioned like Pete Wisdom, and I know Pete Wisdom of the new current stuff like Excalibur, and that's all I know them as. So it's really interesting to know that they have this this background, this history that I just haven't explored yet.
yeah. She they introduced Pete Wisdom back in the day in Excalibur, and her and him became an item at some point, and then they off when Colossus came back to life. Her and Colossus, and I didn't really understand that when they, led up to that point in X-Men Gold, only to say she's going to leave him at the altar. I'm like, she has had a crush on Colossus since she was introduced as a kid. I mean, if Colossus had acted upon her wishes, he would have been arrested for, sexual molestation, right?
Mm.
So I mean, because of the age difference between the two.
Yeah.
So this whole time she's had it, and he's kind of gone his way, she's kind of gone her way, but they all end up coming back to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the Jean Grey Scott Summers dynamic, and for them to get married up in the married issue, and then boom, they're gone. So
Right.
it didn't make no sense to me. Let's see. Mars says, I agree. She's evolved over the decades. I started reading X-Men in the 80s. And yeah. And she's been kind of that little kid sister that everybody's got. You know, you go hang out with your buddies, but your buddy's got his kid sister. You really don't view her the same way you would somebody your age, but she's cool to hang around and you let her hang around. That's kind of how I view Kitty Pryde, because she was younger than all of them. At one point, they kind of pushed her to the New Mutants. Because, of course, Claremont was writing New Mutants, too, so it kind of made sense. Because the writers, they'll carry their characters that they like and they develop around because that's why they.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. And so talking about character development, talking about character de-evolution, and that's Cyclops, because Cyclops, to me, he wasn't my favorite character, so don't get me wrong. But to me, he was that quintessential Boy Scout, right? Buy the book, lead the troops, let somebody else be the heart. He didn't really have the heart. But to be a total douchebag, which is what Bendis turned Scott Summers into, I'm like, this is another departure from that. So one of the things that they did when they brought Cyclops back after he died of the Therigen Mist and the whole Inhumans deal, they brought him back. Basically, they did this storyline, Uncanny X-Men Volume 5, Annual 1. And so basically they did a storyline to where he looks back at way he had been acting and is like, I was a total douche. No wonder everybody had a beef with me. And he kind of realizes it. And so Hickman was kind of, during this X of Swords event, Hickman was kind of toying with the idea of him going back, because at one point, Cable's in trouble. And so Jean's like, let's go get our son. And Cyclops goes to the Quiet Council. I told you I wasn't going to ruin it, so I'm not going to pull a big part of it. But basically, he said, look, we're going to go. And they're like, you can't do that. And he's like, we're X-Men. This is what we do. And Professor X even says something. And Cyclops goes, I was raised better than that. And he walks off. He's like, I don't care what you say. What you going to do? Stop me? And Professor X has his grin like, hey, I'm proud of him. So I feel like they're kind of steering him back. This traditionally happens over the years with comics. It goes back and forth. Writers start taking somewhere till the fans revolt, and then they go, okay, nobody's liking, let's get them back over here.
Right.
They're doing the same thing with Spider-Man. I think that eventually they're going to undo the One More Day storyline and put him and Mary Jane back together. So I think that's kind of the same deal. Let's see, till she grows into her own and you're fighting your best friend. Yeah, right. Dazzler is Omega. Dazzler. Dazzler is, so Dazzler was created to coincide with, and anybody in the chat that is knowledgeable of the singer's name, let me know. But there was an album that was going to be released, and that's who she was kind of coinciding with. And because me and somebody was having this conversation last night. What's going on, T-Pain, up in the house? Thanks for joining us. A Dazzler, but she seemed ridiculous and boring. Not as dumb as Squirrel Girl for sure. Mr. Garrow, Lady Fantastic is a big Squirrel Girl fan. Let's not get her testy. Dazzler was coinciding. Leela Chaney.
Was that the singer?
No, that's a character. That's an X-Men character. She was a singer, and she had teleportation powers. Whereas ME Comics says Gracie Jones, according to Google. So we'll trust Big Brother for now. Leela Chaney, she can teleport like across the universe, whereas Nightcrawler is basically limited to like a 3-mile radius.
Mhm.
And so,
Okay.
what, he said something about Ditko too? Oh my goodness, Mr. Garrell, don't make me ban you from this chat. So, but Dazzler develops a deal with Longshot, who's one of the few people that is a non-mutant that has joined the X-Men.
Interesting.
So he's one of the few, he's an android from Mojoverse or Mojo World, and so they end up having a kid named Shatterstar, which people would know from X-Force. Yeah, and so somebody was saying last night that it was Bo Derek, and then so made me kind of wonder. But anyways, no good comics. Lighting is point on, bro.
Thanks, Brinken. Appreciate it. Been messing with some things, you know.
With Black Bolt, Dazzler destroying for sure, because she derives her powers, her light powers from sound. So all you have to do is whisper or say something, and yeah, that could definitely be a conduit for that. So that's definitely cool. So did you ever read the Outback period of time, like from the fall of mutants to where the Siege Perilous portal and all that kind of stuff?
No. Nope.
Okay, so that's Mark Silvestri's run. So Mark Silvestri, who drew like Cyberforce or Witchblade, things like that. He's probably more. Yeah, that's the Shatterstar and Deadpool. That's right. He got retconned to be his own dad, and I didn't mention that because it is really weird. But basically, Shatterstar gets retconned, so he goes back in time, ends up becoming his own dad. So he is actually where they took the stuff from to make Longshot, but Longshot ends up having a kid with Dazzler named Shatterstar. It's really weird. Definitely one of the best thought out storylines for sure. But so in Fall of Mutants, the world thinks that the X-Men are dead, the X-Men team at large at that point. So eventually, the Siege Perilous portal, which is Roma or Merlin's daughter, will gives them the opportunity to go through there, and when they come back, they're changed. So they use the Siege Perilous portal to change an awful lot about the X-Men. When Rogue came back through the portal, she was hot, whereas before Rogue was, but when she came back through the portal, she's been the way she's been ever since. And then when Psylocke went through the portal, that's when the whole Quanon thing came to play. Because when she came out, she all of a sudden she's Asian, which for the longest didn't make any sense. What happened in the early, like the X-Men, the Jim Lee X-Men, like issue 20 something, they kind of explain what happened there. Colossus lost his memory going into X-Men 278 when he came back, and then Storm, that's the whole extinction agenda deal. She had that's right, she didn't go through the Siege Perilous. Nanny and the nanny, and what's her guy's name? He's in the House of X, the Orphan Maker. Yeah, Orphan Maker.
Yeah.
They kidnapped Storm and made her a kid again, and then so yeah, there's a lot of storylines over the years. Yeah, and talking about not falling far from the tree, it's kind of like my wife's family tree. It just goes fork straight up. I mean, it don't never fork out. That's the problem, right? Her grandparents are third cousins, no lie. So Roma makes them all electrically blind. That's right. And it's been a long time since I read it. That's right. And then so that's how they kept the foe that X-Men were dead. So was because they were blind to electronics. during that time. When they went through the Siege Perilous portal, that all went away, and then they were able to be seen again. But that was that storyline there, and Mark Silvestri did most of the art on that. And then that's about when Rogue and Wolverine really started, hitting it off as teammates. Was during those storylines. And they went down to Australia. So Gateway is the little Aborigines guy that can make portals.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So Gateway is Bishop's great whatever grandfather.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
So that was revealed in some later X-Men deal. But yeah, so he would portal, shoot them anywhere during that time. So it was an interesting read. And largely a lot of the stuff that was done during that time has been since like retconned or done away with. But in of itself, if you just read the Mutant Massacre type storyline, and so found you there. I'm now following you. You're my first. Oh wow, I'm your first. I feel special.
Nice.
And we have a bond now. Okay, that was too weird. Okay. Mr. Garrell says we always remember our first. I'm not going to do like I did on Spinetick's show one night and start singing like a virgin, doing the Madonna thing. Well, we won't go there. Did I ask you what your first X-Men comic was?
My first X-Men comic that I read? No, the first one I read was 94.
Wow. Okay. You started way back then.
Yeah.
Do you have a copy of 94?
I do. I have it right here.
So I'm gonna make the screen big. Why don't you show some of the folks some of your more treasured possessions there?
Yeah. So I actually just got this probably maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Finally got this. I've been eyeing it for quite some time, and finally got a really good deal on it from my local comic shop. Actually, got this from Zap Comics right near me in Jersey. This was the book that really did it for me. So this is a really important book to me, just in general. I actually read this before I read Giant Size X-Men 1 even. I jumped right into this. I think I even looked up okay, where did Claremont start? And just this was one of his big things, just kicking off this arc. And I just jumped into it. And I didn't actually go back to Giant Size X-Men 1 until after issue 96, I think. I was just like, okay, it's time that it kept referencing, what just happened. And I'm like, okay, I need to really just go back to reading that. But yeah, so I love, this is what really got me into the whole series to begin with. I was hooked from the beginning, and this is what me and John are breaking down now. And we're not that much, further ahead than this issue here, where we just finished 108. A couple others that I have here are, going back to some of the original stuff, this is X-Men 14. I actually got this as an AOK. This is probably my first big X-Men book that I got, and I got it back in March. This was given to me by my buddy Omni Dude over on Instagram, Dave. He was trying to get rid of all his floppies, all his single issues that he had. His name's Omni Dude. He has Omnibus, a huge wall full of Omnibus. And for a long time, he told me he was trying to sell the books, and it just took so long because he's not really a seller. He was just trying to get rid of these books. And then it got to the point where he literally was just trying to make room where he needed. And it turns out he lived not even 20 minutes away from me. And so he messaged me. He's like, hey, man, I have all these books. I know you're getting into X-Men and stuff now. He's like, do you want them? And I was like, oh, yeah, it's really nice of you, but I don't know if I can really, buy anything right now. And he's like, no, man, if you just swing by, you literally can have all these books.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy. He gave me, altogether, it must have been over $600 or $700 worth of books. It was insane. I actually, it's terrible to say, but I actually declined his DC stuff because I don't have enough room to keep everything. So he literally, I had slabs. He had a bunch of different first appearances and other things of some newer characters and stuff. But I know they're big or popular books in the DC world, and I actually turned them down. And I was I really appreciate it, but because his one deal was, he's like, I think you'll really like these, and he's like, keep them for yourself. They're for you. And so I said, yeah, I would never like sell them, or if I do, like I would just do it for him. So anyways, he gave me this. I just love this cover so much, and such an
Yeah,
obviously
those red.
yeah, big time. And yeah, Sentinels, just love how he's like hovering over everybody there. It's just a really epic book. So
Those Kirby hands. That's some Kirby hands right there. Kirby always
yeah,
liked to draw hands. Yeah.
yep. So that was that. This one, this is we'll go number 12. This was a book that I actually won in a raffle. It was my very first. You ever see like those Instagram raffles?
Yeah, they call them waffles, to be technical, I guess, over there. Yeah.
Right. So I dabbled a little bit in some of those, and this was the first one that I won. This was early. This was like in June of this year. I think I invested all of $50 in this. So I certainly, got lucky for sure. But yeah, first Juggernaut, was really excited to have that 4.5 off white to white pages. And then I got, I'll take this one out. I'm just going to jump to the really big book because this actually followed right behind it. So this is signed by Stan Lee. It's a 2.5 off white to white. I actually won this one in a raffle as well. So I invested about $200 altogether, and again got lucky. I actually won this one 5 days later after the X-Men 12. And I remember telling my girlfriend when I won this one, I remember telling her, I was like, hey, remember when I won that $500 book, the X-Men 12? She's like, yeah. I was like, well, I think I just won like a $6,000 book, literally 5 days later. And
did she say, hey, let's go over to the boardwalk and let's test your luck over there? Is that what she said?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because we go to the casino, like we used to anyways. We enjoy, going to casinos and stuff like that, and that experience. So that was definitely, we're like, oh man, maybe we need to go buy some lottery tickets or something. It was pretty crazy. So and I just remember this was taking all the light away from Juggernaut, because like I was still excited, and I think I even made a video about Juggernaut, and then I had this thing literally like showing up a couple days later. And then once I showed this, like it just kind of, no one cared about the Juggernaut book from that point on. So, but anyways, yeah, that's and it's funny because I tell you, and I said this in the beginning, I'm very new to X-Men still. I have a lot to learn, obviously, a lot to read and catch up on, and somehow I have in my possession issues 1, 12, and 14, all within a $250 cost that it spent.
Yeah. I mean, three of the biggest keys, in the part of it. Wow.
It's been crazy. So just I got 3 more here that I'll show off, and actually I'll start with this one. Just for something newer, I like to dabble with the variants, and this is actually one of my favorite variants, really of all time, for X-Men stuff, and because of how it relates to the new stuff, with Jean Grey walking through the gateway there. And this is art term, so yeah. I went through a long art term kick for a while, and then this came out. So just wanted to show that off because this is definitely one of my favorite just current variants that have been released in the past year or 2 years, I guess. And then I have I'll do. We were talking about story arcs, or you mentioned story arcs, so I wanted to grab this one because this is actually one of my favorite story arcs from the Chris Claremont stuff. And actually, John and I haven't even covered it yet because we're actually a couple issues away. But this is issue 111. This is where the team, gets essentially brainwashed into becoming these circus, actors. And it turns out it's the work of Mesmero, who has them all tied up and putting this show on. And I just really liked it because it kicks off with Beast, who is currently in the Avengers at this time, and he's going to check on his friends, and he's dressed up in this trench coat, hiding in the background so that no one sees him. And he's like, "Are those my friends? They look like my friends. I can't quite tell." And it just the first like splash panel or two, he's like creeping up, trying to check it out. And it's a really interesting story because he has to basically snap all of them out of it. And I just remember there's like these scenes of like Jean Grey and Scott being like Scott's like the bouncer, and Jean Grey is like the main show, and she's got like all this makeup on, and just totally different character because they're being totally different people. So it turns out, yeah, Mesmero's in the whole thing, and it's a really fun read if you guys haven't read this.
Yeah. Now the issue after that's issue 111. 112 is my birthday book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So.
Hey, very cool. Very cool. So that's that. And then the last book I want to show, it's my personal favorite book. It's partially because of the characters that the first appearances that come of this, and then also because of the fact that I got it signed by Chris Claremont. So this is 129, and we've talked about Emma and Kitty Pryde here for a bit. But yeah, I got this earlier in the year from Otto over at 3 Men in a Basement. He actually sold me the whole Dark Phoenix saga for a relatively cheap price, and they all were in about this grade range, and it wasn't graded at that time. But as soon as Claremont announced that he was having this whole the first signing with CGC down in Florida, then I wanted to take advantage of it. So that, and also the having the new label, I thought the new label was pretty cool. So I don't have anything signed by Claremont up until now, so I thought this was appropriate to be the very first book. I'm sure I'm going to do a lot more. I know he's doing another signing, but yeah, I was happy that this came back as an 85 too. But yeah, that's probably one of my favorite books, right there.
Yeah, so Claremont comes to a lot of cons in the South, and so because of the plethora of work he's got and a lot of it that I have, there's always something I'm going to get him to sign. So I got him to sign my Iron Fist 14 First Sabretooth, and the Spanish version. I got both of those signed. That X-Men 101 British Pence version right there is signed by him. That's the English version right there. You might have saw my Instagram. I've got several different copies of that one right there.
Yep.
And then that 95. This again, not knowing anything. Well, hold on, 95. Not knowing anything about pressing or whatever, I bought that book at a shop right before I seen him in Memphis and got him to sign that. And I got 8.5 white pages. If I was interested, I could get it cracked and get it better than that because there are some pressable defects on there, but it's good enough for me.
That's all. How was it meeting? I mean, you've met him several times. I've heard he's such a talker, but he tells stories. But I hear he's a great guy from other people talking about him.
Yeah, I stalked him at breakfast before the last con I was at.
Oh yeah.
I was on my Instagram. I was like, "Hey guys, that's Chris Claremont over there."
Great. I'm totally doing that now.
Well, and I don't know if you saw this or not, but his it's X Factor 67, I believe. That the story where Nathan Summers is sent into the future as a baby because Apocalypse infects him with the techno-organic virus, and so Cyclops sends him into the future. And I posted the book that Chris had signed and said, "Hey, got this signed last year, Chris Claremont, blah 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 blah." He responded to my Instagram post, and then I was like, "Okay, I've done arrived now." Chris Claremont's responded to my post. So
I've seen him in the chat. Like I've seen him in chats and stuff. He's or in comment sections. He seems like a pretty down to earth kind of guy. So.
Well, and I missed that. Did you get that collected omnibus thing that they just crowdfunded?
No.
Perfect. So I looked at it, and I think it's too late to order it. But there was a deal that Marvel was going to put out if they got enough orders in. And when I looked at it, I'm like, man, it don't look like they're even going to put it in, so I'm not going to worry about it. Lo and behold, closer to the deadline, a lot of people ordered it. And but it's this collected edition. And so it's some unseen art, some different artists are putting in there, some untold tales and some collected editions of his work. Looked like a pretty nice little deal. Nice. But yeah, that was nice. And when I thanked him for coming out to the con despite all the Corona stuff in July, he said, well, to be honest with you, it's a lot of it's financial because, you know, the vast majority of my income is derived from cons.
Mm.
So if you think about the days before Image and all these rising, upcoming creator-owned properties, he created all these properties. He's getting little to nothing for.
Right.
And so, you know, he's having to go out there and make the circuit to make his money.
Sure. Yeah. Get in the hustle.
And, you know, he hasn't really wrote anything up to recently. Now, I'm not a huge Conan aficionado. I know Varangian Vigilante is, but I got the Conan supersized, and he actually wrote one of the better stories in there with Conan.
Oh, cool. I didn't realize that.
And so he, as I understand it, and anybody in the chat, feel free to correct me, but as I understand it, he's largely on retainer with Marvel. And I think that he kind of gives his opinion, you know, on stuff, especially related to X-Men, but basically they're paying him not to write anywhere else.
Okay.
I'm sure it must not be much for him to still want to, you know, get jobs and make the con circuit, because you think about it at his age. I mean, that's a lot of wear and tear, flying here, flying there.
Yeah.
You know, to try to, you know, make a few signatures, see a whole bunch of people, and sit down or stand up all day.
Sure. Yeah, no, it is a lot. I do hope we get back to that, because I would love to meet him at some point.
So April, the Huntsville Comic Con is going to still be on. This is the one that went on in July. He's going to be back at it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I know you said something about being from New Jersey, but you know, that is kind of a piece there. But hey, get you a cheap plane ticket. You probably get a plane ticket pretty cheap, you know.
Yeah. Oh, right now for sure.
Predator and Aliens. He did write that Predator versus Aliens, which, ironically enough, I didn't know, and I was in line for an hour to get him to sign stuff. And at the con, and somebody in front of me, we got to talking, and he had a Predators versus Aliens. I said, I didn't even realize Claremont had done that.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Raging Cajun says road trip.
Ooh, that's a good idea, Raging. Good idea.
So I was talking with another YouTuber earlier, and I was like, hey, you need to good thing about being on YouTube is that you always have an excuse, whether you're on vacation or not, to go to the comic shop, right? Because you got to have content, baby. We got to have content for the channel, right?
It's so true, man. It's so true.
So see, you can plan a vacation, go to Huntsville, Alabama, and see the NASA space station down there, and you know, stop at a bunch of shops on the way, do a little rambling road trip like I've done before, and it'll be fun.
That's not a bad idea. I think you know, as soon as this whole pandemic thing lifts, I know that my girlfriend and I definitely plan on traveling. I mean, we love traveling before this whole thing happened, and anytime we do, yeah, if I'm out, like we went to Vegas last year, and I checked out Torpedo Comics and a couple others, and but like you're saying, any chance you get to just, you know, hit up a shop or two in that particular area, you want to take advantage of it. So yeah, road trip actually sounds pretty cool, and we like to travel, so we'll see how things turn out after things get better.
Yeah. Well, we're heading up towards that 2-hour mark, and I do appreciate those of you who hung around this time. We're at 23 at almost 2 hours in. So obviously there's a lot of X-Men fans, or at least some No Good Comics fans that are out there that have hung out with us this long. So why don't you well, I'll tell you what, let me do mine, and then I'll let you do yours last. How about that? We'll leave it out with you. So do want to thank everybody, because we did hit 700 subscribers today. So I will be giving away that first Boba Fett in magazine, this book right here. So be sure to hit the bell notification so you don't miss, because you will have to be present to win this particular book. And talking about X-Men, I do see where he has already claimed this. So everybody else that didn't win that, better luck next time. But if you want to rent a bigger X-Men book, head over to my video entitled 600 subscriber and 750 subscriber giveaway. And so there's 3 different ways that you can enter to win. You can like and then comment in that video saying, I want to win. That's one way. The second way is to tag me on Instagram talking about the 750 subscriber giveaway. You can get 5 entries to win by just doing that. Then you can also make a video of your top 10. If it's just the books in your whole collection, the top 25, it doesn't really matter, just the top type video that a lot of people are making towards the end of the year anyway. In the video, shout me out, shout out the channel, put it in the description below, all that kind of stuff. Now, if you do that, you need to hit me up on IG and let me know, because as much as I try to get around everybody's content, it's extremely difficult when you're living life and making content too, and blah, 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 blah. So if you do that, let me know so I can give you full credit for it. But that will get you 10 entries to win. So 3 different ways to enter to win. You can get up to 16 entries to win. And then when we hit 750 subscribers, it's going to be knocked off, and we will spin it to win it. Now, you don't have to be present that day to win that book. I give you a 48-hour span if I'm not familiar with you, or to contact me back after I've contacted you on Instagram or through YouTube. I Love Disney and Comics was in here. He won, I think, the first giveaway I ever did on the channel, which I believe, and if he's still here, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a signed Donnie Cates and Ryan Stegman signed Venom, early Venom, and it was a Memphis Comic Con exclusive that I picked up when I went to Memphis Con last year, and got it signed by Cates in November of last year. So, but yeah, so there is that. And if you like, let's see here. If you like displaying the front and the back cover of your comics and want to figure out how to do that with that clear backing board, you can go to comicclearsupplies.com and enter the code SCG10 and save 10% on your order. And if you're wondering how much your comics are worth, be sure to visit gocollect.com to find out about that. And having done all those public service announcements, Justin, I'm going to yield the floor to you. Tell us about your channel, anything you got coming up.
Yeah, well, first I just want to say thank you, Jason, for having me on, because this is a lot of fun, and my mind is blown right now. I have so much that I'm taking in. I'm being a sponge with a lot of the things that you shared today, with just some of the story arcs. I'm really excited that I have all this X-Men still to read. And I'm still so new, and yeah, I'm just loving everything that I've read so far. So thank you for just inviting me on, being on the show. You've been so great to this community. I see you everywhere, man. And so I like that and appreciate that you're supporting everybody else and doing all these great giveaways. It's incredible. So congratulations on the 700. And I hope that you get to 1,000 super quick. But yeah, no, for me, right now I have my Comic Collector Origins stories or live streams every Saturday. So those are at 2 o'clock Eastern time, and that's where I interview someone from the community, where I get to kind of know their background of how they got into comics. We always talk about origin stories of characters and first appearances of characters. So I thought it'd be a cool concept to kind of dig into the collector's origins and first appearances of when they first, picked up a comic book or visited a Comic-Con. So it's a really fun show. My guest is a good friend of mine. His name's Ben. He goes by SD_rum over on Instagram. So he'll be my guest this Saturday at 2 o'clock Eastern time. And as I said before, Jason, got to have you on the show at some point. We'll definitely set that up as well. Other than that, just every Tuesday, John and I, John's Comics with Kids, we do our Omni X-Men show, where we break down issues from Chris Claremont's Giant Size X-Men one, the whole omnibus here. This is 1 through 30. I'm sorry, 94 through 30 plus Giant Size X-Men number 1. And then we are also doing a giveaway soon, where I'll be giving this away to one lucky winner. You got to get your name raffled into the raffle. The way you do that is answering questions that we ask every episode, of questions based on the previous issue that we broke down. So we always pick little things about the issue. And if you're one of the first to answer that question, you get your name into the raffle of this. This is what I'm giving away. And John is also going to be putting together a mystery box for a second winner. So just some fun extras that we have on the show. But if you love X-Men, which obviously everyone here does, if you get a chance, swing by every Tuesday Tuesday, 9 o'clock Eastern time. I do the odds episodes, and they do the evens. John does the evens in terms of which issue we're on. So we'll be on my channel this Tuesday breaking down issue 109. So we're getting close to that 111. I'm really excited for it. So yeah, that's about it. I'm just moving and grooving. I'm really over on Instagram more so than anything else, but I am trying to get a lot more involved with the YouTube community and getting my own content out there. So be on the lookout for more pre-recorded stuff as well as I continue to move along with that. But yeah, other than that, I look forward to more stuff. And Jason, we definitely got to collab again.
All right, sounds good. And notice several people in the chat have subbed you up. And so check Justin out if you're not familiar with him. The information for his Instagram and his YouTube is in the description of this video below. So you can easily click on that. I do appreciate everybody. And before you get out of here, be sure to smash that like button and hit the subscribe button here and the bell notification, because like I said, tomorrow I'm going to be going live. I'll put out a thing for it so you'll know, and on Instagram as well, because sometimes notifications work with YouTube and sometimes they don't. So that you have to be present to win that first Boba Fett in magazine. And I'm also going to be dropping a new comic book day tomorrow at 11 o'clock, I believe. It's a pre-recorded video. And then Saturday on this channel, I'll be selling with Lady Fantastic Tacoma Comics and several other people that are not usually on the show at 1 o'clock Central Time. So be sure to check that out. A lot of good things going on, a lot of good content, and there's a lot of good people in this community. And I do appreciate the camaraderie that we understand, as we talked about earlier with X-Men, that we have more in common than we have different. And so we can leave the politics aside. We can leave all of our thoughts on certain things aside, and let's just talk comics. And that's what we were doing here tonight, talking X-Men. And I do appreciate everybody for hanging out. So until next time, keep reading and keep collecting. Adios, everybody.